Welcome back. My next guest covered energy policy during the Deepwater Horizon disaster, worked as a White House correspondent during three presidential administrations, and has served in multiple roles since joining NPR in 2018. She's currently the host of Weekend Edition Sunday and Up First. Ayesha Rascoe, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
So, I understand that you began your move into journalism, or at least thinking about moving into journalism at a fairly young age. I'm curious how the career that you have today compares to what you thought it would be like.
I did start. I'm like one of those weird people that knew what I wanted to do probably from middle school on. I knew I took an aptitude test and I knew and it said I would be good at journalism and the light bulb just kind of went off and I said that's what I wanted to do. But I will say at the time I really just was interested in print journalism. So, well, what was in print journalism? We don't have as much as that these days. But like, I wanted to be a writer. I saw myself, never in front of the screen, never on a mic, not talking. I didn't think that I was a good talker. I thought I was a much better writer. And that's what I saw for my career. Obviously, it has taken a much different path
Mm.
than I ever imagined. But that was my thought. So, yeah, I've wanted to be a journalist pretty much, almost my whole life at this point, and I went to college for it and I got it. But, over time, I began to do things that I didn't know that I would do when it comes to broadcast journalism.
And so you've done hosting on a few lighter programs on NPR as well, including It's Been a Minute. You've kind of been a guest, I guess, on Pop Culture Happy Hour, but that's sort of like hosting in a way. How does it compare to reporting? Has it been a kind of a natural progression for you?
I think that it has been a sort of a natural progression, but it is different. You with reporting, you're really out there on the ground. You're, collecting the tape. Sometimes, a lot of times, you're out there by yourself. When I covered the White House, so I'm, running behind the president and trying to get the tape and running back and sending it to the White House radio pool, which is how you get all the audio up for everybody that's not able to be in the room with the president.
Mm.
And so like it's very like on the ground and visceral. Whereas when you're hosting, it's even though you do go out and you do trips and stuff, a lot of the times you're in the studio and you're kind of bringing people in. And I look at hosting as really like bringing someone into my home if NPR was my home, right?
Yeah.
You're bringing them in and you're kind of guiding them along and you're giving them a tour of the world and what's important and what you think they should know, but you're trying to like hold their hand as you do it. So through the sad things, through the serious things, and through the things that are a bit more fun. So you're kind of trying to guide them through it all and just letting them know that you're there with them. They're not alone.
You've kind of known for this upbeat and very joyful delivery on the programs that you host, and it's kind of a departure from the ordinary radio voices I think a lot of people are used to. But there's been a fair amount of attention to your voice, and there's a lot of people that feel that it's really opened up the field. A lot of reporters who say that it's helped them find their own voice.
Mm. No, I take it as such an honor, and I'm still, always shocked or surprised, or just like it really, when people feel like I've made an impact, it's something that it sticks with me, and I am always I'm grateful and I'm grateful to NPR because they just let me be myself and they told me to be myself. They said, we want you to sound like yourself, just the best version of yourself. And we want you, and they really stuck to that. They didn't tell me to clean this up or change this or you're messing this up. They always work on me pronouncing everything correctly and all sorts of names. And we work and we get it right. So it's not like they just said, just do anything, but they never tried to take the me out of it.
Mm.
They never tried to make me be someone else. And so I'm very appreciative of that. And I'm grateful that that has connected with so many people.
Last year, you edited a book about HBCUs called A Celebration of the Black College Experience. And it's a book of essays that really look at the impact of historically Black colleges and universities. You also attended at HBCU Howard in, Washington, DC. How did that, do you think, prepare you for the work that you do today?
Going to Howard University, it really, it's a very high bar there. It's a very high standard. I always say, like, going to Howard, it's really ingrained in you from day one that there's no half stepping. You got to show up. You got to show up correct.
Mhm.
You have to, and Howard can be a pretty tough audience, right? Like, they expect the best, and they'll let you know if it's not. And so I definitely learned that you have to put your best foot forward, and that you have to really show up prepared, show up ready to deliver, and that you're always representing, not just, I'm not just representing myself, I'm representing my family, I'm representing so many people who have come before me, who have given so much for me to have the opportunities that I have. So you really also get this sense of the history, that we are standing on the shoulders of giants, that all of these people work so hard, so many people whose names we'll never know, who worked so hard so that I could have a better life, so that people could hear me, someone like me, on the radio. And they opened those doors for me. And so I have to always remember that in all that I do. And so I think in that way, going to an HBCU, going to Howard University, really did help prepare me. And doing the book HBCU Made, it really, I saw that I wasn't alone. Like, there was a lot of people who felt the same way, who felt that they were prepared, who felt that these institutions, HBCUs, large and small, poured into them and gave them a sense of, not only goals and passions, but also of legacy and community.
Yeah, and it's an extraordinary range of voices in the book. I guess I kind of have to ask you about, some hard times at NPR. How do you think that the organization has been responding so far to the end of federal funding, and, what that implies for the mission of public broadcasting and public media going forward?
I mean, from my perspective, they've hit the ground running. They really are trying to, do everything that they can, to shore up the member stations, support the member stations, and support the mission. And I think, just as a host, and with, talking to all the other hosts and other people at NPR, what I see is people really who are really determined to help as much as they can. And I think that that's one of the things that I love about NPR, is that it's not just a love in the headquarters, but there's really a broad support, from the member stations and for the member stations. People want to help. People want to help and see what can they do to shore up all of the NPR network, because that's really how we're able to do what we do, is because you have all of these member stations with reporters on the ground every day, reporting on their communities, being a part of their communities. And I think that's really what sets NPR apart. And so what I've seen is times are hard. I'm not going to deny that. It's a hard time. But even in the midst of that, you see people pulling together. And so I always believe, and truly believe, even in the midst of hard times, you can see blessings. And I think a blessing is everyone in NPR pulling together.
Well, I know that people here on the First Coast love your voice. It's great to hear you today. Thanks so much. Ayesha Rascoe, she's the host of Weekend Edition Sunday and Up First. It's great talking to you. Thanks so much for doing this.
Thank you so much.
All right, we'll be right back.